into my home, not into my office or anything. So we're all kind of on a very strange kind of interaction here. And all right, now everybody smile. Okay. It's very hard to contact, to make interaction with people that we don't know each other. This is a very unique opportunity for all of you and for me as well. This Corona has changed so many things in our lives, and you have this special week to kind of slowly move into your new life here in Israel, and it's really a gift, leaving everything that you had in your home, and not yet starting your new life here in Israel. It's an in-between time, kind of an opportunity to think about, things, and also to make friends. We have this on a regular, not until now, haven't had this opportunity to be kind of like, for many years I was working, and my favorite time was, the end of one week and beginning of afternoon. That was my favorite time. All the work week was behind me, and all the weekend was in front of me, and the in-between time was my favorite time of the week. So I don't know how you feel. Perhaps you're very anxious about what's waiting for you and what you left behind, but enjoy this time. It's a special time. I don't know if it's going to come back around again. So yes, try to enjoy it. And I hope that we have the opportunity within the next few days to kind of learn about each other and learn about important things that are going to be, part of your life in the next few weeks or months. And I have a presentation prepared, and along with Margareta, not I prepared it, but I'm going to talk about the things in the presentation. And I hope that these things you find will be relevant to your experience. And I really would like for some of you or all of you to share with us whatever is in your heart and mind. And if you have questions about anything, please, feel free. We are here for you. And whether it's regarding what's in the presentation or not, this is an opportunity to share. And before we start, I would really like for anyone to raise a hand like this if they have been out of their country as a caregiver before. So anybody would like to open up a hand and kind of wave at us? So I see that Jennifer, okay, and also Gemma and Anne, okay, and Teresa, and okay, and Jillian, okay, so quite a few people. Let's see if I see the full screen. Anyone else? Okay, I see Hannah. Anyone else want to wave a hand? Okay, Teresa. Okay,
yeah,
so we
Nora,
have quite
Nora.
Okay,
Nora,
that I'm looking at the screen and maybe I'm missing some people. Hi, Anat. Didn't see you there before. Okay, good.
She's trying not to raise her hand.
Not to raise your hand, right? Okay. Very good. So we have quite a few people here that have been out of the country as caregivers in the past. Okay, that's good to know. I'm going to share the screen now. Okay. And these are the things I'd like to talk about today: culture and values in the relationship with the elderly patient. Assuming that most of your patients will be elderly, and I also like to use the term client, not just patient. They are buying a service and you are prepared, giving a service, and so in many ways they are a client. And I also want to talk about the fact that it's not just one client. The client may be a whole family. And I think that it's important that you think about that when you meet, the family and the client, and think of them as a group, and you're becoming part of the caregiving team. Hopefully there is a team, and you will have, people in the family that are also part of the of the experience. Perhaps some families have, they share the job of taking care of an elder person. Perhaps one son or daughter is taking care of finances, and the other daughter is taking care of whatever issues are regarding you, and another may be taking care of, health issues. So very often families are involved, and you'll be part of it. I think we all and part of our person. The more we are in autonomy and but the more we put an emphasis on these qualities and and let's talk a little bit more about each one of them. What do these values mean in caregiving work? Well, let's talk a little bit about his unique person to be valued and his ethic, privacy, beliefs, and things. Sometimes you may think that it's about. I think with his role, in his way. Obviously, you're not a guest, you're not a family member, you're not, you're not a cleaning person. They've had cleaning people there before, perhaps. They've had caregivers who have come and gone for many, for a few hours a day and so on. And they have their family. And each person has a role, and you are now filling a different role. So if you haven't had this experience before of being a living caregiver, you have to understand that for the client, it's also a very new experience. And how to caregiver, I think it's your responsibility, our responsibility to be very sensitive to their feelings and situations. To respect a person's privacy is a very broad way of talking about who he is, what is important to him. Obviously, his body, his personal hygiene, but not just. It's also a matter of, touching things in the home, moving things. It's also a matter of, sounds, smells, touch. Whenever you enter a person's space, you have to be very attuned to their to the pace of their life, the timing of things, and how things are expressed. I think that you want to be respectful and always be on a learning curve. This is very important to portray a very very big desire to learn and to understand how you want to do your job the best that you can. 1 minute. I want to talk a little bit about autonomy. Autonomy is the capacity to make an informed and uncoerced decision, self-directing freedom, especially moral independence. Give your patient or client the right to choose what he prefers to do, where he wants to go, and allow him to make his own decisions. This is also important because I think that sometimes people are too eager to be good, and you don't want to do more than is necessary because you want to encourage people to maintain their independence. And so it's a process of learning what a person can and cannot do in a real way, and to encourage them to do as much as they can on their own, because this gives a person a feeling of controlling and empowerment. If he's completely, subservient and allows you to do everything for him, then he's actually giving up his own independence. And it's a balance of what a person can do and what you can and shouldn't do for him. So it's can and cannot do and what he expects you to do. Sometimes they want you to do things that they can do for themselves, and it should be encouraged that they do for themselves. It's very important to allow a person to choose what to wear, when to wear, how much to eat, when he wants to eat. All the little things in life is, to allow a person as much control of his own life. This allows him to feel more dignified and to assist him in every way that he can in order to achieve that, to be as independent as possible within this very constricting situation. I think that it's important to understand that when a person makes a decision, and usually he has to participate in the decision to bring a caregiver into his home, it's kind of a crisis situation for that person, because up until then, perhaps, he believes that, yes, I'll get better, things will be better, things will change, I'll go back to being the way I was in the past, perhaps with mobility, perhaps with, whatever it is. That this is kind of a crisis situation for him as well, to understand, well, maybe not. If my family and I need a person to be there for me hours, that means that perhaps it's a turning point. And and not a turning point necessary for the length and independence. So we want to encourage people to maintain their dignity by maintaining as much independence as possible. Okay. And at first, it is a feeling of mourning. So they might be happy that the family won't be so stressed and so involved in taking care of life, if this is how they've been, and a professional coming in to do things for them. But again, it's also dealing with the loss of their own independence and abilities. Tolerance, big word. Toleration is allowing, permitting, acceptance of an action, idea, object, or a person which one can sometimes dislike or disagree with. Be tolerant to your patient and give yourself time to get to know each other, even if you don't agree with him, and sometimes always respect him. Being tolerant is very important. It's a big word. Sometimes, I like to think that being not judgmental is an easier way to understand being tolerant. We don't want to judge a person, even though we may not agree with them. Perhaps they say things that we don't understand why they would say such a thing. I wouldn't take things very personally. I think people that have had a long life will come to conclusions that may be logical or not logical to you. And I think it takes a big person to allow yourself to say, okay, this is them, and I think others. It's very important to allow yourself to know why and how a person arrived at his conclusions. Perhaps they might be even prejudiced against people of different color, of different background, of different religion, and so it's important to maybe know their story about things that you see in the home, perhaps pictures, get to know who the family was, what their background was. Look at our younger, more functioning individuals, what their achievements were. This allows for a very, interpersonal way of interacting. Empathy. Empathy is the capacity to understand or feel with frame of reference. That is the capacity to have empathy encompasses a broad range of emotional states. Try to empathize with your patient's physical and emotional condition. I think this is a little bit of a tall order to try to put yourself in their shoes. Obviously, you're not their age. They've already been your age. You haven't been their age, and whatever crisis they're undergoing, it's very hard to be in a different person's shoes, especially if you come from a different culture and different history and so on and so forth. But I think it's important, to be understanding and like I said, not judgmental. Sometimes they come out of pain. Sometimes they have, a whole series of losses that they're dealing with, not just their physical, but emotional and so on. I want to say something about the holidays. It's not directly related to our subjects, but I think it's important to put it in place. Almost at the beginning of our Jewish holidays, and the next month is going to be a series of holidays that usually begin the evening and then last 2 or 3 days. And I think that for Israel and for the Jewish people in Israel, this is a very stressful time. New Year and Yom Kippur, so one after the other, one between the other, in the midst of another, and people are being isolated, and people are being stressful, and people are being, trying to see grandchildren. All of these things, even if for everyone, even for healthy people, who's coming to dinner, who isn't coming to the meal, who's inviting me, who isn't inviting me, who's alive, who isn't, how was it what did my wife prepare, what are the smells, what are the memories. Everybody think it's true for all people that, when you have your holidays, you also remember, your family and where you want to be and who is important and who isn't and so on. It's a very emotional time and you're coming right into that. And every family has a lot of traditions, what they do, what they don't do, and how they do it, and especially in the kitchen. The kitchen is such a special place during holidays. I'm assuming that it's not just for Jewish people. Food is always something that symbolizes for all of us, celebration and good things. And so you have to be very, very tolerant of yourself, of not knowing. Ask questions, take a notebook, write down things they say to you. You'll be making mistakes, but it's okay. It's okay. You have plenty of time to learn, and whatever the family asks you to do and not to do. Some things we don't do, and some things that, being Jewish, we don't do, and to people that are not, slowly, with a smile, you'll be supervision and missionally your interaction with the family or with your client. I think everyone has expectations. I think that the past year or two has really taken a health is somehow indoors, for going out, going to community centers, going to concerts, plays, because they're concerned about their health and being in contact with people. It's really taken a toll on the elder community. And I think that that it's very important that that you be aware of the stress, the added stress that people have with this new worldwide crisis that we're all undergoing. So, what is your opinion? In your opinion, is the most important value of caregiving work? Are there any other values that you believe that are important for caregiving work? So I would like to take a 5-minute break and invite you to think about these things and things that I've raised. And if you have any questions or concerns, I encourage you to either write them down and on the chat, or if you'd like to share with us, ask questions. And I'll be very happy with Margareta and Anat to to respond and any questions at all. Okay.
If you allow me, I just wanted to suggest, you asked in the beginning if there are in the group caregivers who already had experience of working abroad. So related to the questions that you just asked, we also will appreciate that those of you who actually had this experience will respond us also based on your experience. And those who had experience in Philippines, same, and those who just started his or her career as caregiver also will be, so, but it would be also interesting for us maybe to see the different angles of those who had also different experience. So please.
Okay, and I think
bring in with your answers.
Right, and I think that you would also like to hear each other, learn from other people's experiences. A very good way to, to learn. So I invite you all to think about, what we spoke about and come back to us in 5 minutes and share with us. Hi. So I see we have a few people that wrote things, Margareta, and
no,
perhaps
actually, no, it's not
okay.
Related to your questions. Something in the morning was the Boker Tov, and that someone can participate because of the poor connection. So no, not related to your questions. Maybe.
So would anyone like to share with us, thoughts about their previous experience working abroad and how it was to adjust to a new culture, to coming into, a family's home, a client's home at the beginning?
Those who didn't have this experience, the questions are still remaining about the values that you believe are important for caregiving work.
Okay, everyone is still very shy. Okay. Well, I want to tell you that in Israel, we are a very informal community. I think that one of the things that is probably different, and you'll find that we're very informal. We don't call each other by Mr. or Mrs. or any other titles, usually, unless you're a doctor, maybe. And I think that also what you're going to be calling your clients and their family members is probably by their first name. But you should also ask what they would like to be called, not necessarily assume that it would be, Mr. So-and-so. That's kind of shows distance and informality. And also not by titles of uncle, aunt, mom, dad. All of those things are, not usually acceptable unless, that's what the family asks. I think that one of the most important things that you have to understand is you have to be very flexible. And today, being flexible, I think, is one of the most important traits or qualities that we all have to adopt. Younger people are obviously can be more flexible, or we assume that it's easier for them to be flexible. Older people are less flexible, more set in their ways and their habits. And I think that today, if you are a flexible person and you're willing to change and adapt, then you have a big advantage over those that do not. I think that it is really culture. You'll find that people are very, they speak with a lot of body language, with their hands, with facial expressions, which you may not understand at first, a lot of hand gestures. I'd like you all to do what I'm doing with your hand. Go like this, you cup your fingers together and you go like this. Okay, can everybody do this? And this means just a minute. Exactly, thank you, good. Okay, this means just a minute. Wait, rega, rega, as we say, rega, rega. Okay, yes. It means please wait a minute, be patient, rega, rega. Okay. I will continue, and hopefully by the end of the presentation, you'll be a little more willing to share with us what's on your mind. Okay.
Just allow me a second. Somebody asked me if we can answer only to the first question. So the answer is yes. You can also share thoughts not related to the questions that we are asking you. And so feel free to write it down. Sarah will continue, and then we'll stop again a little bit later to see if you added any responses, and also if you had any questions you would like us to answer you.
Okay, I mean, really ask anything that's on your mind. It's fine. We are, we're here for you. So another important question, subject to deal with is the gender aspect of caregiving work. Obviously, most of us are of one gender or another. Today, it's popular to think that people are on a spectrum of gender, not necessarily one or the other. And I hope that you know that in Israel, our community is usually pretty tolerant about, gender issues. And I would assume that younger people would be more tolerant and perhaps older. Nonetheless, even if we just want to men and women, there are some things that so the caregivers, and some live in a home where a woman, it's not just man or a woman that needs to be responded healthy and house all kinds of feelings and emotions that really live, and it's our responsibility as caregivers to be aware of them and also to respond to them in a proper way and to put boundaries. Sometimes when you're taking care of an elder person and being young and healthy and being in perhaps in a situation in the bathroom or in the bath or in the bed, and you're kind and you're gentle, it may be misinterpreted as sexual gestures. Perhaps they have issues with those things. Sometimes it may cause certain kind of emotions. Sometimes it could arouse as anger, jealousy, thinking back of what I used to be, I'm not anymore. Now that, perhaps if there's a woman in the house, there's a bigger man doing my job, doing what I used to do, cooking better if it's a woman, cleaning better, taking care of my husband, taking my place as a woman, as what I've been for them. It can provoke many, many unintentional emotions. And, once a young person enters the home in a very intimate situation, it's not, not something that the individual can expect in the beginning, but it may arise, and it is your responsibility as the caregiver to be aware of it and to deal with it. Ignoring it may not necessarily be the right way to deal with it. So if you think that someone is not understanding your kindness or your soft, gentle gestures, or I think anything else that deals with, with misunderstanding you, or the way you're working, then you have to voice it and say that this is not the response that you intended. This is what you're doing in order to make them feel better, to bathe them, to wash them, you're touching them, you're rubbing them, whatever, and there is no other intention in it. And to put the boundaries, it is your responsibility. If you don't respond, it may be misconstruing relation. Caregiving, women usually take care of children, also men who have these abilities. Women naturally have the ability to care for others with caregiving abilities and some the care field. Your caregiving qualities to provide good and quality care. Okay, I think that, if you've chosen this profession, then I think that you already know something about yourself, that this is something that you are capable of doing, dealing with, people that are disabled with their, with their bodies, with their, incontinence, perhaps with physical. Very important that you also put boundaries on what is and what isn't part of your job. A client, he is the major care, care object, but you have to understand that sometimes there may be a son, a daughter, part of the group that you have to deal with and manage the situation. And if you have difficulty, and if you think that people are misunderstanding and overstepping their boundaries that you have prepping them, then I think that you have to ask for help at the beginning within the family if there's someone in your presence that you think you can. Gender issues when treating a man or being close to a patient's spouse, sexual harassment can occur. It's important to be aware of it. Here are a few tips on how to deal with sexual harassment. It doesn't have to happen, but we do want you to know that if it does, we're there for you. And there is a YouTube presentation here that you are welcome to watch and see how you may deal with issues if they arise. We talk about these things because these are part of the boundaries that you are going to be there and you have to learn to set them. So do you have any concern about you being a man or a woman caregiver? Do you think caregiving work is easier for men or for women, and why? And do you think that caregiving will be harder or easier because you're a man or a woman? Again, I invite you to respond. If anyone would like to share with us their experience in, perhaps dealing with a man or a woman in their care, questions about else. Yeah, I'd like to hear.
We received actually one comment related to your previous questions, and maybe while we will discuss this, we'll receive some more, or people will open the microphone also share. I will just read to you what was shared before. Working experience before need to adjust physical, mentally, and emotionally. Very, very important to know a study Hebrew language, just probably know study. Too easy to communicate and understand patient need or family or employer need to you, and also to express your thoughts.
Yes, language is a big barrier, obviously. I assume it's not your first language. And for most of the families that you're going to be working with, it probably is not their first language either. You know that Israel is largely a country of immigrants, and we're a young country. And so I would assume that, the elders in our community have come from somewhere. Obviously, there are Israeli born, elder people, but most of our elders have come from somewhere, Asia, Africa, America, all over the world. There are different traditions, different ways of dealing with issues, communication as well. And only recently, English has become a popular language, almost international language. But I think that most of the elder people, if they haven't had a reason professionally to use English, then they probably are not that familiar with the language. And body language and every other way of communication that you can think of. For those people that have worked abroad, perhaps you have some tips about how to communicate with people in a foreign language. So it would be nice if someone wants to share where they've worked and what the language was and how it was for them in the beginning. Anyone would like to tell us a little bit about that?
Sarah, I will, while people thinking, processing, I will read you a little bit more.
Okay.
So we also receive a response on the values that are important is empathy and care. And yeah, so if you want to comment on that, please do, because the other comment is a question.
Read it again, Margareta.
So the additional comment, as I said, that somebody answered the question on values that are important for caregiving work, which are empathy and care. So I just said if you want to comment on that, because the next thing is a question.
Okay, empathy and care. Yeah, empathy is, part of our toolbox. I always feel that, I feel I'm looking at all your young faces, and I'll tell you something I always enjoyed. I've been a caregiver or geriatric social worker involved in caregiving for the elderly for over 30 years, actually 40 years. And I've always enjoyed working with elder people. Thought that they were, wise. They knew how to deal with issues in their life, that I had things to learn from them. And I think it's true. and yeah, I think that part of that is being able to be patient and to be tolerant. Yes, absolutely. Questions? Is there a question?
Yeah, there was a question. I'm curious to know how is it to be with a religious family?
Okay. Okay, that's a very important question. And every group is wondering about that. So I think that the best way to answer that is to say that there is no one way, okay? In Israel, I think that in many countries, it's the same. When you define yourself as a religious person or a non-religious person, something very personal. And of course, there's a range of what you choose to do and how you do it, et cetera, et cetera. And Israel being a country of immigrants, each community has its traditions, its customs, its habits, what they do, what they don't do. I think it would be probably just very important in the beginning to understand that even though some people will define themselves as religious, others may think there are of ways to is the most important that define themselves as religious because of the food restrictions. And so you have to be very sensitive and very tolerant of the ways that they they in the kitchen, and not to take it personally and not to be insulted if they ask you not to touch things in the beginning because they don't trust you that if they ask you not to bring food into the house, if they ask you not to eat certain things in the house. Margareta, you're welcome to add. Anat, what would you like to say about that?
Well, maybe it's something also that we mentioned. As you said, each group wonders about it, and makes sense because you come and so you want to know how religious the traditional people live here. So we found a few links to share with you. Sarah mentioned that there are important things related to kitchen, and there are specific laws of related to that in Jewish tradition. So they call kashrut. So I will send you the link after the meeting, and also something maybe related, a little bit more information about Shabbat. While you will look at this, just it'll give you some background, some understanding of the tradition of the culture. But then afterwards, when you watched it, just remember that still, whenever you're coming to a specific place, to a specific family, to a specific person, you should check with them how they do things at their place, how they do things at their kitchen, etc. Yeah, for you to not make mistake because saw something in the video or read something online. Just remember that again, it's very individual, and every family, every person not only has their own tradition, but also has his or her own way of interpretation and things that he or she likes to be. So it's just ask it. They should appreciate your, your interest and your understanding of important things, and you want the things to know how how they want you to get them done. So yeah, I would just maybe add that to Sarah's response already. And we received
Okay.
a few more comments as well.
Are there more comments?
Yeah, meanwhile, while we spoke, we received
Okay.
few comments. So there is a comment that I think it's not, okay, I think it doesn't matter of what gender you are, a man or a woman. It's about your dedication and willingness to your work for you to perform your task easily.
Okay.
Another comment that other values, I believe, that is important for caregiving work is patience. So a lot of patience.
Okay.
So another comment is I'm just checking to see the continuation. No, someone else. So someone else wrote to share my experience. So it doesn't mean that you want to open your microphone and share your experience. So you add something. Oh no, you wrote down later. Okay. So the experience that this participant wants to share with us. Most ill clients are irritable because of their situation. So as caregiver, we need to have a lot of patience to deal with it, and we should apply this therapeutic approach.
Okay. Okay. So yes, I think that disabled people are, have a lot to deal with, mostly the loss and frustration of not being what they were or how they'd like to be. And some people, different people respond differently. And of course, we can't necessarily take away their pain or take away their loss or take away their, whatever. And if we're there, then sometimes we may have the, we'll be the ones that they're kind of expressing their feelings if they're negative towards us. But I think that, being able to contain our clients' emotions is part of our toolbox. It's part of our tools to be able to contain a different person's pain and frustration and anger and whatever, all of those negative aspects. Okay, thank you for sharing. Thank you for
There's
sharing.
another comment. Yeah, there's another comment. Caregiver work becomes harder if you don't have the trust of your client. So it's important that you gain your client's trust to make your work more lighter than it is.
Okay, very important. We're going to talk a lot about trust in our next meeting. I agree completely. Yes, you cannot take care of someone unless he trusts you that you have his best interest at heart, and that's what you're dedicated to do, to take care of him. Absolutely. Okay, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, and
Anyone
we
else?
received we just received a thank you for responding on the previous on one of the questions that were asked. So yeah.
Okay.
Sure, you're welcome.
If you ask, we'll try to respond. It's kind of hard for us to understand or to know what's important to you. We made these presentations and we're kind of fishing to know what it is that, that may help you adjust better and, start your journey on the right foot, we say in Hebrew, on the right foot in. So let's talk a little bit about an intercultural encounter, which is what you're about to have. Intercultural differences are differences in traditions, food, norms, beliefs, values, which vary between nations, people, ethnic groups, and speakers of different languages. Every culture has its own ways of expressing itself. Every culture has its own ways of defining conflict, passing messages, resolving conflict, and talking about it. Every culture has its own way to express emotions and to talk about emotions. So I think that you'll find that in Israel, people are usually very, very loud. And shyness is taken into our culture as weakness. So if you have something to say it, not aggressively, but say it. I think we appreciate people that speak their mind, say what they think, and think what they say, you know. How to adjust to a new culture. Keyword, be patient and give yourself time. I think that's very important in your surroundings. Perfect the first time around at anything, you're on a learning curve. And that means that you'll be making mistakes. And next time, it's important that you keep your culture and customs and traditions if you want to, and if they're important to you. And again, there are that may help you with that. I would, you know, I'm into this for the Jewish people. There are holidays that you also share with the family that you're with, you know, about the holiday, what it means to you, how you go about celebrating, and so on. I think that I'm assuming that most of you are Christians or Catholics, or maybe not, but I'm assuming that you're not Jewish. And so it's important to learn about each other, especially elder people, like they haven't come, but share and encourage. Oh, have you heard something about the Israeli culture? And what have you heard? Do you have any concern about adjusting to the Israeli culture? Do you have any questions about Israeli culture? Let's do this again. Rega, savlanut. Everybody needs patience. Savlanut means patience. Anybody like to share with us about what you know, what you think, what you're afraid of being here in Israel? Anyone? Margareta has written anything?
Yeah, we just received a response from somebody that she heard about Shabbat.
Okay, Shabbat, yes.
Yeah.
Today is Friday, and Shabbat begins the evening before, like all of our Jewish holidays, at the sunset, and ends at the sunset of the following day. And again, usually there is no public transportation. It's a day of rest. You can probably learn a little bit more about Shabbat. Is there a specific question that you'd like to ask about Shabbat, you know?
I think it was just a response to if they heard anything of Israeli or Jewish
Oh,
culture.
you heard about Shabbat. Okay. Yes. Yeah. Okay. So I think most countries have, pardon me?
No, I just said that the other participants are also welcome to answer those questions, of course.
Okay. I think most countries have, you know, some sort of Shabbat, you know, a day of rest. But in
Maybe are you trying to say us something, or just the microphone is open by mistake?
Is someone trying to say something, or just their microphone got turned on?
Hard to say.
Okay.
Maybe if you're trying to say something, we can't hear you, so try maybe to write it down in chat, then we might read and respond to you, or to react to your response.
Gemma, how about you? Is there anything that you'd like to share with us? I hope you're not angry that I'm asking you, but you know, you seem like you're here with us, concentrating and listening. Is there something you'd like to share with us about your previous experience, or a question about Israel?
This is my first time here in Israel, and the first time as a caregiver. So I'm listening our discussion. Yesterday, my internet is so poor. So today this is my first time to join with you.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Yes, I hear that you're coming in and out. So, okay, thank you for being so attuned, and, you know, in spite of the internet. Okay.
We received some written reactions meanwhile.
Okay. First, I'd like to say to Gemma, yes, you'll be fine, not to worry. This will be a good experience for you.
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay.
Another expression in Hebrew, which I think we didn't include. Rega we included in short lessons. Those of you who see, but another related to something that just Sarah said. There is another expression in Hebrew, leat leat. You know, slowly, slowly. You'll give it time, you'll get there. Leat leat.
Right.
On one hand, Israelis, as Sarah said, very impatient and loud, and you know, everything should be done quickly and fast. On the other hand, because you know we have this in culture, so we also have, you know, reminders and stoppers in our culture. So we have this rega to stop, but also to say leat leat. Yeah, you're not being all the time loud. You also need to, you know, calm down and let things go, work smoothly. So you also need to give yourself time and be patient, as Sarah said before, and laat, yeah, you will get there. You all will get there. So I will read a few more reactions or comments. So we received a couple more questions about what people do in Shabbat. So I suggest, you know, I suggest that you, as I said, we found a few, we'll share with you after this meeting a few links about Shabbat. You can read and you can also watch something. So, you know, and afterwards, if you still have questions, you can Google more or come back to us and ask specific questions. But, you know, I think it would be, it will give you a good background on that. There was also a question related to that. As caregiver, do we need to prepare a Shabbat tradition, especially if our client is religious? So we.
Okay, Margareta,
So,
do you have something you want to say about that? I would like to say something as well.
well, I think we just partially answered it before, but I would say you will need to check with your client, because it also may, you know, it can vary. It can be different. Some of religious Jews will ask you maybe to assist them to do something that they wouldn't do. For example, to switch the light. Yeah, but some of them actually they won't switch the lights on Shabbat, and they will ask you also not to do that when you're in the same room where they are, because they might have also special timers for that. So it also may be different. So again, as long as you might need or want to learn about Jewish tradition with the materials that we send, or you find it online, or you talk to different people in Israel, you still need to remember that, again, Sarah said before, there is a range, and you know, and everything is individual. So we need to basically to find out with a specific family. Or Sarah, would you like to add something?
Yes, I think that I understand that everyone is anxious about that, and you just have to understand that it's so individual. I mean, I'll tell you what I do on Shabbat. In my family, we have a traditional Friday night dinner, and every Friday we try to get together. And I'm assuming that this is something that's, you know, probably part of most Israeli families, not necessarily, but could be. And on Shabbat, either they, you know, Shabbat is like Friday and night and Saturday. So sometimes they get together on Saturday, sometimes they get together on Friday. Very often people go to synagogue, okay? And so that's obviously the place of prayer. Sometimes they pray at home. Sometimes they go to the beach. So it depends on the family's lifestyle and what, you know, what their specific habits are and so on. But you should really ask, because they may not necessarily think that, you know, something that's so obvious to them is obvious to you. So you should really ask, you know, say, what is it that you do on Friday? What is it that you do on Shabbat? What is it that you expect me to do? What is it that you expect me not to do? And how, you know, how do you expect me to be? Or where do you expect me to be? Maybe they'd like you to, you know, take the time off and relax. Maybe a son and a daughter is coming. Maybe they're, you know, they have company. Very difficult to know ahead of time how each family behaves. So yeah, you just have to learn what the specifics are. Anyone else like to ask or share?
Yeah, we have additional question to that. How about the way of living of those who are religious ones? How can we adjust to them? Is there any prohibitions the way they live?
I'm assuming that there are. Again, I'm going back to the kitchen. And one of you said that trust is the most important part, and I think that once that there is a relationship of trust, then I think that prohibitions will be diminished in terms of what you can and cannot do, because people are, if they're sensitive about their food and their rules about what's kosher and not kosher and how to keep kosher in their kitchen, then they don't want strangers touching or moving in their kitchen to change something. So once you build trust and they trust that you know how to do things the way they want them done, then there shouldn't be an issue. But if you think that there is an issue about where you store your food, I mean, you want to eat too, and you want to enjoy your food. So perhaps if there's a shelf in the refrigerator, and if not, perhaps ask for a little refrigerator somewhere else in the house. All of those things must be negotiated. But if they don't want you to put your food or to prepare your food in their kitchen, then they must allow you to have an alternative, place that you can. Sometimes they'll ask you to eat with them, when you're spices, different feelings and bad feelings. And so, you have to what it is that's happening and to try to figure it out. If they're not communicating, try to get assistance from other family members to understand, why they're not communicating, if they're happy, if they're not happy, but it is a sensitive situation in most families' kitchen. So you should just, not take it personally, just have to learn.
Yeah, maybe we'll just add one more thing to something that Sarah said. It's I think it's natural to be, I don't know, somewhat anxious maybe, but again, give yourself a time, give yourself a credit, and be open with from this point of view with your client, your employer, the person that you will take care of. Just say, I'm here, I'm the new, I want to learn, and be open about it. And then it's legitimate that you don't know anything about it, and the more you will be, don't try to guess. Yeah, don't try to assume something again because you read something, you heard from something, even from somebody Israeli. Because I'm pretty sure we never discussed it with Sarah, but the way I do things in my life and in my kitchen and during Shabbat are quite different than what she does. Yes, so if I will tell you what you should do, and you will come to Sarah's home and start to do it the way I told you, she might be quite unhappy with you. So it's better that you will come to her and just ask her, Sarah, hi, I'll be here, we're here, I want to assist you the best possible way. How do you do things? Please explain me, please show me where things are. Yeah, so yeah, it would be much better and much understandable. And yeah, so just give yourself time once again, and just ask questions. Don't be shy about it.
I have to share something with you people. I like to drink coffee in a certain way. I think most people like their coffee in a very certain way. And whenever I go traveling out of Israel, I have a very hard time finding coffee that I like the way I like it in coffee shops. So if you've had this kind of experience, I don't know, how it is that you like your coffee, but yeah, not too strong with certain kind of milk, not, this, not that, whatever. So I think, if you can relate to that and you want to make someone happy with the way that you prepare their coffee for them, that's, not so easy to learn either. So everything else in the kitchen goes just like that. Once you know how to make coffee for someone the way they like it exactly, then you understand.
I hope we covered the response to this question or all the series of these questions. But again, feel free to ask if you have anything else on your mind. I will read meanwhile another comment that will take us probably to a little bit different topic. I mean, related to that, but just different part of it. Someone told me, probably in Philippines, that they are afraid to go here because of some Israeli being military minded. But I tried to explain her that maybe it's just about the news that they've watched.
Okay.
Would you like to comment?
Well, first of all, again, I really commend you all for being brave and coming to Israel. I don't know how Israel is being portrayed by the news in your country. Every country is different, and I'm assuming that there are different stations that have different. Nobody's objective, obviously, so they have different points of view on things. And very often Israel is portrayed. What makes news is it has to be very loud, noisy, and exciting. So that's what they bring to the news. All the whatever conflict there is. But I think that I'm sure that your experience will be quite different. You're not going to experience any war zones. You're not going to experience any political conflict. I don't think. I think you'll be experiencing. I don't know where you're going to be stationed. Obviously, all over the country. It might be in the countryside. It might be in a big city. I think you'll find that day-to-day life in Israel is very relaxed, like everywhere else. Everything is available, and we're a very multicultural kind of a place. Everybody's on the internet. Everybody knows everything. So, yeah, it's not going to be something that you're going to experience. I don't think this is not. Margareta, you have something you want to add?
Yeah, I have actually, and maybe there are a few. I have things that will take us to different directions. One is related to the actual part of military mind and the situation here in Israel. So I think there is some truth of that because Israel has an active army, and I think part of those who moved to Israel, who wasn't born here and moved to Israel after teenage period of their life, they didn't serve the army. But most of the Israelis who was born here served in the army. So it somehow, of course, affects the mentality in life. But it doesn't mean that that everybody. Having said it's not a military nation or military regime of life, but it should somehow affect us. And even those who don't serve the army, again, the culture has been influenced. So I don't have a very good or specific example or point to show you that. But again, of course, as a background, it might affect. I want to also be honest with you and say that again, the news are usually, as Sarah said, aloud and portray very things that they have to tell. But of course, it's not a lie that from time to time there are some events here that happen that put the whole country in a different mode for a few, for some time. It could be a few days, it could be a couple of weeks. And, in those times, we have also a service that called a service, how we would call the Oref?
The home guard. Home guard.
I can find the actual name, but that, even when it happens, in most of the cases, most of the time, most of the people, life continues as it is. We just have to be more pay more attention to what's going on. If we hear a siren, we need to do what we should do when we hear a siren. There are instructions that being also provided to the whole population, included in English, not only in Hebrew. So they're very simple what you should do, and you would just and you will have to follow, as we all are. And you know, the most important thing in this situation is not to panic, but yes, yeah, and thank you, home front command. And yeah, and we'll share with you in the group. So wherever you are, you feel free again to always to contact call center, and we'll again assist you or direct you to you know, to information, or again short video that you can watch to know what you should do. And then as we all, you wait till this time pass. That's another thing that I want to say. As I said, so I'll take us to different directions. So now we leave in this direction and go to another direction. The same way that you know, people in Philippines hear something about Israelis and have their presumptions, or you know, maybe prejudice. The same way you can assume that Israelis have about Philippines. So whenever you arrive here, you know, and somebody meets you, he or she also has something on back of her mind. So also remember that, you know, it's natural for us people to have some assumptions before we meet someone. But the important thing is to, you know, on one hand, to open yourself to, you know, to get to know a person who is in front of you, and also to assist the same person to open up to you, and also to learn and to get to know you, and not also live with something that was before, you know, they met you on their mind. That would be my addition to this comment.
You know, Margareta,
yes.
is there something else? No, I just wanted to say, you know, I want to say something. You know, when an area or a situation is familiar to you, it's less stressful. And so I'm assuming that, you know, everything that you're not familiar with is stressful. I'm just thinking about, you know, what you just said, Margareta, and I think to myself that I don't get stressed when I hear that there are, you know, rockets being fired. Because number one, I'm used to it. Number two, I trust the Israeli defense system to take care of it. And they do it 99.9% of the time in a very efficient way. And I, you know, as a regular citizen, feel very comfortable and safe. And so I assume that in the beginning, if you are in kind of a situation that would be new to you, if you know, if you hear in the news that there are rockets somewhere, you know, in the country or close to you or far away, in the beginning, it would be maybe stressful time to trust, you know, to trust whatever is going on around you that will, you know, keep you safe, just like you are here to keep and everyone else. Like Margareta said, the Home Guard is here to keep us safe, and they do it very successfully, and they do a very good job. Okay. Thank you, Margareta.
I might read one last comment that we have here, which is, I think, is also a good summary of things that we said before. This is a new journey for us. There's always a period of adjustment between our clan and us, and we are blessed that we are here.
Okay. So this is a very spiritual response. And so I will respond also that, yes, I think Israel for spiritual people, for religious people, is a very special place. And I think that, yes, God is watching over us. Absolutely, I believe that. And I think that, you know, if you can relate to that, then you will feel it. And if not, trust the Israeli army. They are good. We are good.
Yeah, I just want to thank you, everybody. And if there are no more comments or questions, I would just like to let you know what are our next chapters. The same way I did yesterday, I want to tell you today what are our next chapters for the next few days. So, Sarah, would you like to add something before then?
No, I would like to say Shabbat Shalom, which is our usual greeting for, you know, partying on just before Shabbat or during Shabbat. And yes, take the time. Like I said, in between time, this is a special time for you. Not already left everything behind you, haven't started your new things yet. It's a special time. So enjoy it. Doesn't come around very often in your life, you know. So this is a present from Corona to be in between, make friends, relax, and Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you, Sarah. So we'll just remind you shortly. So after this meeting, we will share with you a few links as promised. First of all, Sarah mentioned in her presentation a few things with the YouTube links, so we'll share them. And also a couple links related to Shabbat and Kashrut for those who asked about it. And also we will share with you towards the evening 2 records related to the employment thing, about your rights, about visas, about salary, also quite practical but useful things for you to know. And we won't meet tomorrow. We also won't send you links information tomorrow since it will be Shabbat, and we'll also try to get some rest as well. And on Sunday in the morning, we'll share with you another record about call center and other places that we recommend you to contact in different situations. And afternoon, we'll have another meeting, online meeting with Sarah.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
That's about it. And thank you very
Shabbat
much for your active participation.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you,
Shabbat
everyone.
Shalom.